I love Bethesda. Regulars on my channel know this. Most of my earliest videos on my channel were about the Elder Scrolls and Fallout games. I have gone to bat for Bethesda in the past, defending their engine, defending their handling of Obsidian, even defending their Fallout 76 monetization practices. I honestly felt that Bethesda was given a hard time by consumers who were at their wits' end due to the truly unscrupulous business models of far more evil game companies like EA, and so were much more inclined to give any company, even the relatively ethical ones, complete hell for even the slightest misstep. It's like what Jim Sterling once said in his Jimquisition video Wild Card.
Nobody gives a shit about games on early access that really make a mockery of the system. It's only because Ark cultivated a big fan base and has been retaining that fan base by continuing to work on the game and keep it updated that people are now furious and feel insulted. It's kind of a grim irony that, had Wildcard been a genuinely scummy studio from the beginning, very few people would currently care enough to accuse it of being scum now. You actually have to be on your best behaviour when you make a good game people like, because you'll be punished more than doubly for even slight fuck-ups, as opposed to known shitheads who will get away with far more just because it's expected of them.
Along that same vein, I felt that Bethesda had been getting the wild card treatment from many fans, and I would consistently go to bat for Bethesda because of this. However, I could not defend what happened with Doom Eternal. About 2 weeks after Doom Eternal hit store shelves, a patch was released for the game. This patch included, among other things, Denuvo anti-cheat, some anti-cheat software that is notorious for allowing cybercriminals to steal your identity. Even worse was the fact that some people had actually looked inside the source code for the game and found out that even Day 1 version of the game had code in it designed to work with Denuvo anti-cheat, meaning that id did not simply change their minds and add this software in at the last minute. They knew it was coming. Now, if this were 2016, people wouldn't have lost their shit nearly as much. However, this was awfully similar to extremely shady things that other game companies have done in the recent past. Games would release without extremely shady things in the games, such as microtransactions, only for these shady things to get added in after release, after the people had already bought the game. Because of how similar this was to those kinds of business practices, many people, myself included, jumped to the conclusion that this was nothing more or less than a completely unscrupulous attempt to slip unscrupulous crap into a game after people, many of whom would not have bought the game if they knew it was in the game, had already bought it. The fact that they waited almost exactly 2 weeks before adding it in also came off as a strong indicator that they were deliberately attempting to wait out Steam's refund policy so that those who pre-ordered the game, as well as those who bought the game on day 1, could no longer recant their purchases. Bethesda has stated that this version of Denuvo anti-cheat had really cleaned up its act, and that backdoor hackings are significantly less likely than they were in the past. Cool, except for one problem. The consumers of this game never had the choice of whether they wanted to take that risk or not. In a capitalist economy, it is the end user's absolute right to refuse to purchase a product if something they don't want comes bundled with the package. If a consumer thinks, okay, maybe this Denuvo bullshit has indeed cleaned up its act, but I personally just don't want to risk it, it is absolutely their right to make that purchasing decision. And by deliberately failing to disclose to the consumers that this software with an unscrupulous reputation was going to be in the game, you had directly sabotaged their right to be informed about their purchase. If you really did have that much faith in Denuvo, you should have been honest with us from the beginning that Denuvo anti-cheat was going to be added to the game. and then made an aggressive and passionate speech about why we should give Denuvo another chance, while still giving the consumers absolute discretion to decide for themselves if they're going to be persuaded by your arguments. That would have been a lot harder, a lot more expensive, and would have inevitably resulted in a lot fewer sales at launch than not telling us about it and slipping it in after people already bought the game. But the simple fact of the matter is that that would have been the right thing to do. Put simply and plainly, I don't care how much faith you have in Denuvo. The failure to disclose that it was going to be in the game was absolutely inexcusable, even if the Denuvo itself was not. I had defended Bethesda on many things in the past, but I could not defend them in this case. It was just too shady, too dishonest, too similar of other entirely unscrupulous actions that have happened in the past. So I made a video expressing my disgust, suggesting that we file a class action lawsuit against Bethesda for false advertising. A couple days later, I started a petition on change.org asking Valve to update its refund policy in order to combat totally unscrupulous post-release changes to the game like this one. However, as it turns out, every dark cloud has a silver lining. id Software executive producer Marty Atid has made a post on the Doom subreddit a few days ago. His post was basically an apology for putting Denuvo anti-cheat in and promising to take it out in the next update. That's all fine and good, but what I want to talk about is this statement. I have seen speculation online that Bethesda, our parent company and publisher, is forcing these or other decisions on us, and it's simply untrue. The relief that washed over me when I read that sentence has to be felt to be believed. I don't care about Doom Eternal. I don't play first-person shooters, so I didn't buy Doom Eternal any damn way. But I do care about Bethesda. I care about Fallout. I care about the Elder Scrolls. And I don't want those franchises to be butchered for the sake of unscrupulous anti-consumer business practices. But I could not defend Bethesda's decision not simply to have Denuvo anti-cheat in the first instance, but to bait and switch their customers by slipping it in after people bought the game without telling us they were going to do it. But thankfully, Marty Atid has cleared Bethesda's name in this scandal. Now I can thankfully go back to loving Bethesda. I can go back to seeing Todd Howard as the American Miyamoto. I can go back to being excited for Starfield, Fallout 5, and Elder Scrolls 6. So praise Akatosh for that. That being said, I still believe id Software is to blame for this whole debacle. Like I said earlier, they should have properly disclosed to fans that they were going to have Denuvo anti-cheat in this game. No matter how much faith they had in the new and improved Denuvo, the bottom line is that they had an ethical and legal obligation to give buyers the heads up about it. That much is still inexcusable. However, the blame for that fuck-up now falls entirely on id Software, not Bethesda, and since they're just making Doom and Wolfenstein, I don't really give a fuck about them. And with that, I bid you all adieu. Acerthorn out. Peace!